Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining 888 VoIP and Edgewater Networks today for our SD-WAN webinar. A couple of things just real quickly before we go ahead and start and before I turn it over to Brian Gregory from Edgewater Networks. Throughout this webinar, we will just be flying through the deck. If you have any questions at any time, please use your GoToWebinar control panel and type in your questions. At the end of the webinar, Brian will go through and read off your questions and provide you with any answers. If you need any more clarification or want to have more of an in-depth discussion after the webinar, we will be sending a follow-up email with contact information, and you can either contact someone over here at 888 VoIP, or we'll get you in touch with the appropriate person over at Edgewater Networks. So since it's already 2 o'clock, it's a few minutes after, I'm going to hand it over to Brian from Edgewater, and he will talk to you for the next half an hour to 45 minutes about SD-WAN.
All right, well, thank you, Danielle, and thanks for everybody online joining. Hopefully, if you're a soccer geek like me, you might have the Argentina-Croatia game going on in the background. I actually don't, but I do want to catch a little bit over my lunch hour. But for now, let's talk a little bit about SD-WAN and the SMB, the small business market, and how Edgewater is approaching SD-WAN from our solution set. So what I'd like to start with is a couple of slides just to kind of level set everybody on SD-WAN. It's been such a hot topic certainly over the last year, 2 years. What is it, right? As you think about SD-WAN, it's the core of SD-WAN is software-defined network, and as you get down into the layers of that, it's a separation of control plane, data plane that leads you into taking, certainly from a routing perspective, moving a lot of the intelligence that did reside on an edge device and move that intelligence up to a cloud-based controller. So the cloud is actually controlling the routing, and the device can actually be a lot dumber, if you will. That leads to cheaper hardware because you don't need it. You're not making routing decisions locally. It's actually controlled by a centralized platform. And probably the big reason why world has beaten a path to SD-WAN is this idea of access replacement for MPLS. So you have this this big paradigm shift around looking at MPLS as a certainly service providers selling MPLS today. Access for MPLS is quite expensive, and SD-WAN has come in and sort of undercut that by enabling enterprises to use lower cost access circuits, commodity access circuits, and still get all of the security and WAN infrastructure that they need to run their business. So it's been a really big product that's really gaining a lot of traction in the marketplace. So here's a slide from some information from a company called IHS. They're a big market analyst firm. You can see the ramp here. It's been kind of early stages so far. I mean, the market today is probably only going to approach $1 billion worldwide, but that's going to rapidly change. I think the market has really looked at SD-WAN and said, this is a better product. It's cheaper, it's more flexible, and it's a better design. I mean, and the main reason it's a better design is that how enterprises are consuming applications are different than they have in the past. So, historically an enterprise would have a centralized data center and then use MPLS to have secure traffic back to that data center that might have their CRM application or their ERP application or whatever business grade applications they would use. Well, the cloud, changes that paradigm so dramatically, where you're not going to a central or corporate data center for as much stuff anymore. You're going out to whatever, a CRS, Salesforce.com or ERP platform or what have you. MPLS doesn't really handle that as well as an SD-WAN solution that can manage ingress and egress traffic locally, as opposed to kind of going back to a centralized point where traffic goes, back and forth to the commercial internet. So, certainly the cost element of this, the flexibility and the design is really, the world is sort of beating a path to this product store, and from a service provider perspective, it's certainly where the service providers are definitely looking hard at moving SD-WAN into the portfolio. But for all its growth potential, it's still quite fragmented. So also on the right here is some revenue numbers you can see here from the major SD-WAN providers today. VeloCloud, which was purchased by VMware not long ago. But you can see these are not very big numbers, right? The whole market in the fourth quarter of 2017 was only $150 million. Compared to MPLS, which I'm sure was, $1 billion. So it's there's still market leadership shaking out. Standards are not quite there. Vendor interoperability is certainly not something that people are thinking much about. There's a lot of M&A activity that's going on. You have as you as a service provider or delivering services to your customers, you have to think about where you're going to place bets and which technology partner you're going to saddle up with. And in the early phases, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. There's just some shifting sands that you have to take into account. One of the things that's certainly changing is the delivery model. And early on, there was this sort of end around that the SD-WAN providers were going to market with, where they were basically going, since really in the SD-WAN space, you're not relying upon dedicated MPLS access. It's commodity access. There's a cloud-based controller. It's a subscription-based product. So there was a lot of DIY. When I say DIY, it's like an enterprise would go directly to a VeloCloud and buy SD-WAN for their WAN implementation. But I think what we've seen over the last year or so is much more this carrier-delivered model, to where the carrier is actually out delivering the SD-WAN solution. And you've seen, I've seen a number of demos from service providers. Comcast, for instance, is selling with Versa, I believe. Companies like AT&T and Verizon, just about anybody have partnered up with the service provider with the SD-WAN provider, I should say, to deliver these services as a managed service. And I think customers know and trust this, the service provider to provide that service, as opposed to a more risky proposition of using a direct relationship with an SD-WAN provider. So definitely the model is changing there from a delivery perspective. But as you think about the SD-WAN market today, one of the things that's pretty obvious is it's very much targeted towards the mid-market to enterprise, the multi-site enterprise that spends a lot of money on a WAN infrastructure. They're spending a lot of money on a site-by-site basis, and SD-WAN has a very strong business case around that. So the SMB is kind of a different class of company, right? They're a different segment altogether. They're not consumers of MPLS, right? They have an access circuit that's an internet circuit that runs their business. If they have a couple of sites, they're typically not using MPLS to interconnect those sites. And certainly if they're using cloud-based applications, they're not that concerned about site-to-site traffic. Maybe they're using a CPE-based VPN for, say, point-of-sale traffic or something like that. But MPLS is not a huge product category down market. they obviously value service quality, and they want to, not, if they're going to go off and buy sort of a business grade cable modem service or DSL or, whatever, a fiber connection that's, even like sub $100, they still, they don't want to put up with, quality issues, and certainly if they're running their voice over that network, poor voice quality. And then, there is a cost element here with the SMB as well, right? They're not going to make the massive investment required for these, commercial SD-WAN providers today. They're looking for something that just, solves their business problems and helps their business run better. So that's where, as Edgewater looked at this marketplace, you can kind of break this up into two discrete places where SD-WAN is being sold. And the first is in this enterprise branch office implementation. There's an ROI built around replacing MPLS with SD-WAN, and you see this, this cadre of vendors has entered into this marketplace with a variety of solutions. And then now you're starting to see companies like Cisco buy Viptela and VeloCloud being bought by VMware. So there's a lot of M&A activity going on here to shore up portfolios, particularly for the large technology providers. And so Edgewater, as we looked at this marketplace, we saw we've always sort of historically been strong in the small business. A lot of our customers are deploying hosted telephony solution, hosted UCaaS solutions for 5 or 10 phones in a small business. That's probably the biggest, certainly the biggest segment of our marketplace with our Edgemark devices is serving that, that 5, 10, 20 phone kind of marketplace. So as we looked at SD-WAN, we wanted to build our portfolio around that small business customer that's really and their needs associated with SD-WAN. So, as we looked at that marketplace, MPLS replacement really wasn't something that fits the bill of that small business, right? It's more about improving service quality, driving business continuity and resiliency, doing better prioritization of real-time voice and video traffic, and then certainly being at a low cost point because you're not, these customers are not out spending, $300, $400, $500 a month on an MPLS access circuit. So let me take you through what the Edgewater portfolio looks like from an SD-WAN perspective. And what we've done here is we've bundled in 3 sort of interweaved products that make up our SD-WAN solution. So when you buy an Edgewater solution, you get all of this as part of the SD-WAN license. And the 3 things here we're going to talk about are Stateful SIP Transfer, which is very voice and SIP oriented, application specific routing, which is more of your overlay applications, layer 7 type traffic, and then survivability, being more a, you have an outage, what tools do you have at your disposal to make sure you can keep that business up and running. So the first thing I want to talk about is Stateful SIP Transfer. And this is really, again, targeting, if you consider a business with, say, multiple WAN connections, say a primary cable modem connection and, say, a backup LTE connection, what SST does, say Stateful SIP Transfer, is it's constantly monitoring those links. And you might have my example, I have a cable modem and an LTE. You have a primary, secondary connection. You're looking at those links and looking to make decisions based on link quality. So, in the Edgemark device, we're monitoring quality of those links. Should there be some degradation or certainly a failure, we will statefully move those SIP sessions over to a secondary link. So what would happen, say, if the primary cable modem connection were to significantly degrade to where we didn't feel like we could get voice through in a quality fashion, we would statefully, meaning the call would stay active, move those calls to that secondary, that LTE connection. And then when that primary connection stabilizes, we would move the calls back. So it's really it's always looking across these multiple WAN connections and always trying to find the best path for your voice. And if they need to make a real-time decision on moving a call between WAN connections, it can do that without dropping the call. And how this happens in practice, the WAN connection switches over. There's probably about a 1 second delay between, to make that switch, and then the call continues as it was. And in most cases, you wouldn't even notice. The second thing I want to talk about is application-specific routing. So this is giving you the ability to do prioritization across single or multiple WAN connections for specific business applications. I have some examples here like WebEx or GoToMeeting or Skype or certainly these high bandwidth video conferencing platforms, Zoom, BlueJeans, or even data like from Salesforce, where you want to make sure that traffic destined for your sort of key critical business applications always has priority. So again, this is basically looking at that layer 7 traffic that's not layer 2, 3, 4 SIP traffic. It's looking across. It certainly is. If you have a single WAN connection, it's doing that prioritization on that single WAN connection. Alternatively, if you have multiple WAN connections, it'll prioritize across multiple WAN connections such that it'll make those switches between WAN primary, WAN secondary if a degraded or failure condition were to happen with those WAN connections. And the third thing is survivability. And this is a product that Edgewater's offered for many years, actually, probably at least 5 years. And we kind of felt like this was a good product to include in the SD-WAN bundle that we're bringing to market. And it's really around looking at what would happen in an outage for really any size business customer. So in the Edgemark device, there is in essence a makeshift or emergency PBX that would kick into place if that outage were to take place. That Edgemark would have enough intelligence to determine the various extensions of a business, and in essence would enable you to do station-to-station dialing, hold, transfer, conference, sort of rudimentary PBX features locally using the Edgemark device. So it will keep some features up and running in case of an outage. The second thing that it'll do is it'll route to alternative outbound routing for, say, if you wanted to use a PRI or you wanted to use an analog connections. For instance, the Edgemark 2900E here has 2 FXO ports on it. Some of our other platforms have multiple PRIs or up to like 20-some analog ports as well. So you could, for a business continuity solution where you wanted to design in a analog or I should say a TDM failover path for voice traffic in an outage, you have the ability to do that across all of the platforms in the Edgewater portfolio. And then a lot, it's as you look at how you would manage this, our cloud-based platform for management is called Edgeview Service Control Center. So it is your element management platform. It is your troubleshooting platform. It also has the SD-WAN functionality, control, visualization built into it as well. So you can see here, you have multiple WAN connections, so you can look at if there was outages or degraded conditions, what the connection, what the performance of the WAN would be. You have you can look by queue. In this example is a little extreme. Generally, people don't have that many queues, but certainly you can set up multiple queues, your application traffic, your SIP traffic, your routine traffic, and see how that is all, how much bandwidth is being consumed by those queues. And then, just looking at just the overall performance of the SD-WAN and of your voice traffic, at a business by business level. So you can, it really helps you with remote troubleshooting and alarming and monitoring those customers, such that, as if problems arise, you have the information at your fingertips to find out what's going on and remediate it as need be. Just a couple of things here. Sort of, I think I've kind of laid out sort of how we're different from a go-to-market perspective. Certainly, one of the things that we wanted to do was looking at the routing of our SD-WAN solutions. We made the decision to keep a lot of the routing decisions local, meaning if there is a degraded condition, we use the edge device to really look at that degradation and make a determination if we should move calls or application traffic between WAN connections. So the nice thing is, as you see this visualizations here in the previous slide, this is really giving you the tools to kind of visualize what's going on your site. But really, the configuration of SD-WAN can be managed and implemented without that. Everything is local in the Edgemark, and you can actually configure it without the controller if need be. Just depending on how you want to go to market, that option is available to you. Pricing, this is obviously, as I mentioned, not going directly after the MPLS replacement market. If you've looked at pricing for SMB, or I should say for SD-WAN, it can certainly creep up to $100, $200, $300 a month per site, not including the bandwidth. And there's hardware, or you're going to buy a VM or something like that to put out on sites. You definitely have some costs associated with that. We've priced this much more in tune with the economics of a small business. You can go and integrate this into your existing service offering. You can monetize it by selling a managed service assurance back to your customers. So it's really, it's tuned to be a much more economical solution for that price-conscious SMB. So to kind of wind up here, again, I've mentioned it several times that our solution's optimized for that small business customer. There's no new hardware required, so everything is resident within the Edgemark device. So it's not like you need to have an overlay capabilities. If you're out putting an Edgemark device out there today, this is something that's a turn-on licensable feature that you can add. It's built and optimized for the small business. And then the single pane of glass control. There's no additional overlay capability on if you're using EdgeView today, or if you are looking to use EdgeView, everything is integrated in the same platform. So you can do remediation and troubleshooting and voice monitoring and SD-WAN management and control all through EdgeView. So it's really a single, it's an overlay solution that is completely independent of adding more hardware and more cloud-based controllers to manage your customers. So that is the extent of my slides today. Let me take a look to see if we have any questions. Well, actually, Danielle, did you want me to talk a little bit about the trade up to SD-WAN program?
Yes, if we could go over that very quickly, that would be great. And then if there are any additional questions about the trade up to SD-WAN program, anyone attending can just give us a call over at 888-VoIP, and we can just go over a little bit more with them.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things we wanted to do to kind of jumpstart the adoption of this program is we rolled out something just within the last week or so on that we're calling Trade Up to SD-WAN. So it's a rebate program that enables you to, if you have either older hardware in the field, like an old 4550 or a 250 IAD or an old Edgewater product that you're using today, or you have a competitive product that you use as an edge device. Edgewater will rebate you if you buy a new Edgewater device from us and you turn on the SD-WAN functionality. We will rebate you up to $200 per device for trading up to SD-WAN. So we've just launched this over the last several weeks. So it gives you an opportunity, particularly if you have older hardware that you need to upgrade, a very cost-effective path to upgrade to a new device and then launch an SD-WAN solution to your customer base. So I'm peeking here on questions. Let's see here, and let's see here. The first question I had is, do you offer a web-based training on setting up SD-WAN, best practices, etc.? Yeah, actually, we are in the final throes of putting out some videos, some instructional videos on how to do this. So we obviously have manuals and that kind of documentation. We made a big push this year to start doing video tutorials. The one for SD-WAN is launching very, very shortly. One of the things that we were waiting for, we had some, as I showed you the slide here, wherever it was, you can kind of see this visualization pane here. This actually is this new visualization is in our new EdgeView 15.1 software that's launching at the end of this month. So we wanted to wait to get that out before we finish the video. So we absolutely have some video tutorials that are coming out, and then obviously we have documentation. We also have training classes if you want to go down that path as well. Any additional questions? And I should say, as you're thinking about going to market with SD-WAN, if I click back to this slide here, not that slide, this slide. I think it's a sort of a two-pronged kind of thing, right? As you're going to market, calling on the enterprise and branch office, you very well would want to have an SD-WAN solution targeting these enterprise accounts that's different than what we're bringing to market. Again, we're very much focused on the small biz, so I think it makes complete sense to have kind of a two-pronged approach where you're selling, a higher end solution or a more advanced enterprise solution to these upper level customers, and then an Edgewater based solution down to your small business and enterprise. And we've actually been working with a number of these SD-WAN providers, Versa in particular, around doing integration of our solution with their solution so that you have some cross pollination between solutions. Any additional questions? Let's see here. We have one here. Does the product provide SD-WAN with site-to-site VPNs? Not currently, and that's one of the things that we have on our roadmap as something for late 2018, early 2019. And again, we obviously want to make this a small business oriented solution, so we may have interconnection up to say 15 to 20 sites is a maximum. So we're not really looking to compete with these large-scale enterprise providers. So today we have VPN capability that we've had for years in an Edgewater device. So you can do IPsec VPNs, but one of the things we're launching in our roadmap is the ability for that small biz to do, if they have 5 sites and they want to do secure interconnection, they can do that. That is a roadmap item. Let's see. In other words, do I keep my Verizon Fios services, or am I engaging a new last mile comm vendor? Yeah, this is really access agnostic. I mean, we're not looking to replace access circuits. I mean, certainly today in the enterprise space with SD-WAN, you have a lot of access line replacement because MPLS is so expensive, and you're seeing a lot more commodity access going on. We sell a lot to folks. Probably one of our core customers is someone that's selling, say, hosted PBX, hosted unified communications in an over-the-top environment. This would work exactly the same way. We would look at that last mile connection and do our we would manage and prioritize across whatever WAN connections that are there. We can switch between the two, and it's really independent. It's agnostic in terms of what that access provider is. Does Edgewater offer webinars for partners on how to sell SD-WAN? Well, we'd be happy to do that. So if you would like us to assist you with that, reach back into 888 VoIP, Danielle, and we would be happy to help you getting into market with this, and help you hone your sales pitch, and help you be successful in selling this to your small business customers.
Brian, real quick, I saw that question and I thought that was great, different training and webinars on how to actually sell SD-WAN. And if you feel like coming out to a physical training, we actually have a sales-based training going on in Niagara Falls, New York at the end of July. It's a 2-day training event that's just focused on how to sell different solutions. And we are going to have a 90-minute slot for Edgewater Networks there. And I wrote down this recommendation right here. And we can definitely address how to sell SD-WAN during that as well. So if you're looking for an on-premise training, definitely take a look at the 888 VoIP website under events, and you can learn more about that and see the whole agenda.
Exactly. I think that would be great. I see one other question. I have my little window for answering questions is kind of wonky, so I'm trying to do my best to answer. But there was a question about, do Edgemarks offer SIM slots for LTE? The answer is no, and there's a good reason for that. And we've looked at this a number of times. We have a number of customer requests on this, and we just found that the physical location of an Edgemark device back in the bowels of a wiring closet just didn't make sense to you couldn't rely, even with an external antenna. We just didn't like how that worked from a quality perspective. So we obviously can work with any LTE, like Cradle Point or who have you, to provide an LTE based solution. Our partner in LTE modems is a company called Accelerated Concepts, and they integrate with our Edgemark device, and they actually have the SIM card that goes directly into their modem. So it actually trucks an Ethernet connection back into our box, so it's not an antenna connection. And we found that works really, really reliably. And I will say there's other vendors out there that offer similar solutions. Cradle Point being a big market leader. But just for that reason, we just didn't like the reliability of putting a SIM card, putting the LTE radio directly in the box. let's see here. Let's see. What is the cost to add SD-WAN to 7301? Well, interestingly, it is not. It is completely hardware independent. We don't care. It's the same price for whatever hardware you want to integrate with, and it's roughly in the, it's in the $15 to $25 range is where it is per month. So it's just a subscription product that you can either offer to your customers as a value-added solution, or if you're really just talking with a customer here in the office today. I mean, they tell us flat up there's tons of people out there offering similar service, and I differentiate myself on service quality and looking at SD-WAN as a solution where they can improve this. That's a core message that they can take to their customer about service quality and making sure that your voice is always prioritized across multiple WANs. You have layer 7 prioritization. So there is, it's the same price. It is completely independent of the hardware platform. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna. Somebody asked if we can post the presentation. I believe Danielle will post the presentation along with the webinar itself, because we're recording it. So I think we'll send that out to.
Yes, we will be posting a recording of the presentation.
Yes. Alan asked about, is SD-WAN independent of the last mile connection? Yes, absolutely. I think I talked a little bit about that just a second ago, so I may have answered your question. Let's see here. Do you offer, okay, talk about webinar. I think I got, somebody asked me if you can connect with you on, so yeah, we'll send out links. I'll give you my LinkedIn or my email. So so Danielle, a couple of questions about just connecting back with us. When we send out a note to everybody that's on the call and the folks who couldn't make it, we'll send out our contact information so you can get that.
Definitely.
So I think that is all the questions that I see in the queue. I think I answered all these questions. If you have any additional questions, when we send the email out, just email me back. I will be happy to get back to you on if you have any specific customer instances, or we have lots of information we can provide you. So let me know what your question is. I'd be happy to get back to you on any questions you might have.
All right, and that's going to wrap up our webinar today. So thank you everyone for joining, and have a wonderful Thursday.
Thanks everybody. Great talking to you today.